Good afternoon, and welcome to the Indiana Department of Transportation's Town Hall meeting for the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, commonly known as the STIP. For today, we will be presenting our STIP, which is a 4-year programming document that outlines all phases of all projects that will be using federal dollars for those phases for the next 4 years. Indiana actually adds a 5th year, but that 5th year is there for everyone's information only. It's illustrative is what we call that. So the real key part of the STIP is the first 4 years. The 5th year is to tell you what's coming down the pipe in the future that will be moving into the STIP for development later on. The STIP is federally required in order to get federal dollars for transportation funded projects. Indiana, like other state DOTs, must complete a STIP in order to get those dollars. So most of the DOTs throughout the nation are doing this same exercise right now. In Indiana, though, we update our STIP every 2 years rather than 4 years, because that way we're a dynamic agency and we actually move projects along faster than a lot of the other states do. Our participation tonight will be, we will have a panel here at INDOT of experts that will be able to answer some of your questions, most of your questions about the STIP. And that's why we're here tonight, is to take comments and questions about the STIP and primarily about the STIP. If you have other questions about INDOT or something related to a highway that is not necessarily tied to the STIP the next 4 years, or a maintenance item that needs to be dealt with right away, you can always call customer service at INDOT, and the number for that is 1-855-463-6848. That is 1-855-463-6848. And a representative will be there to answer your question or take your question, your comment with regard to those other items, and then get you an answer or get some action taken care of regarding what you're calling about. You can also access something known as INDOT for You, and what you do is just type into your search engine INDOT for You, and you'll go right to that page, and you can actually online submit comments or questions or concerns about anything related to INDOT, and our representatives will then respond to you and take care of the problem, ideally within the next 3 to 4 days at the most. So those are items that you can do if you have other questions. Again, we're here today to talk about the STIP itself, and we're here to talk about specific projects in the STIP. If you have questions about specific projects, please be aware that while we do have a panel of experts, they may not necessarily know everything there is to know about every single project. We have project managers assigned to every project, and if you have a question that we cannot answer today, we will contact the project manager, we'll get the answer, and then we will respond to that answer online, and you'll know what the answer to the question is. There are several ways to contact us today. The first thing is, if you have a question, on the right side of your screen, and if you're joining us with the internet, you can simply type in your question or comment on that screen and then hit submit, and we'll see it, and then we'll bring it to the fore. Secondly, if you're calling in by telephone, what you want to do is hit *6 to mute your phone, and then you will be in contact with an INDOT representative who will then write down your question and then transfer it to us so that we can see what your question is and answer your question. Again, if you have anything that's not related directly to the STIP today, you can always contact us through the INDOT for You if you're using your computer, and that's INDOT for the letter 4 U.com, or you can call 1-855-INDOT-4-U, which is really 1-855-463-6848. We will start out our meeting tonight with a presentation from Roy Nunnally, who is the director of the programming and planning area at INDOT, and he will discuss the STIP itself. We will break during that presentation from time to time to take questions and answer some questions, and return to the conversation or the presentation. And then when the presentation is over, we will open up the floor to any questions that might be out there or comments that might be out there. Our panel tonight is actually, it's going to be coming up soon here on your screen. Hopefully we can show the faces of the people that are involved. And Roy Nunnally, who may have popped up already on the screen. There's Roy. He is, as I noted, the Planning and Programming Director, and he will be doing the presentation tonight. Michael McNeil is our STIP Program Manager. He's responsible for all things STIP. And anything in this document, he has a hand in it in one way or another, as far as the projects, the narrative up front, explaining the STIP, and so forth. We also have Vanetta Keefe here today. And Vanetta is our rail programs manager. Anything related to railroads, Vanetta is the expert at INDOT. We all turn to her, and she always has the answer for us. Not always the answer we want to hear, but she always has the answer for us. So thank you for joining in, Vanetta.
Thanks, Jay.
Also tonight, we have April Leckie. And April formerly put the STIP together for many years, and that's why she's here tonight. But she's also in charge of intermediate range planning. She's the intermediate range planning manager. She also runs our entire programming system for INDOT, which is a massive system, and it's a major undertaking. Thank you, April, for joining in tonight.
Thanks.
And we have Brandon Bergoa. Brandon is our statewide bike and pedestrian coordinator. He's also a planner, and he is also running the board tonight, so he's working behind the scenes to make everything happen. Thank you for joining, Brandon. We couldn't do this without you.
Thanks for having me.
And finally, we have Jason Castile. Jason is with the transit section at INDOT, and he is the transit planner for the entire INDOT, and he deals with multiple transit systems within Indiana, and also grants to those systems and other issues that might come up. So thank you for joining us, Jason. And at this point, I will turn the floor over to Roy Nunnally for the presentation. Again, we will stop briefly during the presentation to answer a few questions. Roy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jay. As Jay has mentioned, my name is Roy Nunnally. I'm the Director of Transportation Planning and Programming. And I'm going to talk to you about our statewide transportation improvement program known as the STIP. What is the STIP? The STIP, as Jay has mentioned, is a federally required document, a planning document that covers 4 years or more. Our document is a 5-year document. However, Federal Highway only recognized the first 4 years. Therefore, our 5th year is illustrative. It is a programming, not an accounting document that identifies funding by activity type, by project phase, and by funding by fiscal year. Our fiscal year is between July 1st through June 30th each year. It's the state fiscal year. It also includes projects that are 100% or are federally funded projects from Federal Highway and Federal Transit Authority. It also includes projects that are 100% state funded or some local funded projects that are deemed as regionally significant. And when we're referring to regionally significant, we're basically talking about a project that will have a pretty sizable impact for a large region. You know, example, you would have a convention center or a hospital. Those are considered regionally significant. Same thing for our transportation system. So we look for that. If it's regionally significant, as agreed upon, it is included in our STIP. These are some of the projects that we're going to discuss that are locally state federally funded projects. Non-state jurisdictional highways. INDOT is responsible for interstates, U.S. highways, and state routes. So therefore, anything that's not on that system, again, if it's federally funded or if it's 100% state funded and is considered regionally significant, it is in our project. We also have passenger rail, public transit, freight mobility, bike and pedestrian, and also national parking projects that are included in the STIP. What is in the STIP and why is it important? In the STIP, there are a number of projects. We have roadway improvements that includes projects that are added travel lanes, where we're adding either a through lane, some turn lanes, or new facilities, or whether we are reconstructing a roadway, tearing it completely out and replacing it, or just resurfacing it. We also include operational improvements, including modernized traffic signals, which includes signals that can talk to one another up and down a corridor, that can be timed remotely, and also that collects data. We also include intelligent transportation systems that collect data and let you know when there are challenges on our network, whether there's delays, road closures, or detours. We also include items such as road diets, which includes if we're taking a corridor that no longer serves its purpose as a 4-lane or 6-lane corridor, we can repurpose some lanes to be bike lanes or parking and other elements that will improve the flow and safety of that corridor. Ours also include, our STIP also include safety improvements, everything from pedestrian crosswalks, sidewalks, ramps, crossing signs, slide corrections where it might be on a rocky terrain, and either the side of that terrain is slided into the roadway or the roadway is shifting. So we fix those, and those projects are located in our STIP projects, as well as railroad crossings and geometric deficiencies, which we call sight distance issues, where either the roadway is curvy and causes a lot of safety incidences, or the roadway is very hilly, and at the top of the crest of the hill, you can't see on the other side. So if there's someone traveling that's at a much slower speed, such as a non-motorized vehicle, a horse and buggy, or bike and pedestrian, or just a pedestrian, that's a dangerous situation to be in. Also included are bridge projects and improvements, from new bridges to bridge rehab, reconstructions, various maintenance, bridge maintenance, including inspections, bridge painting, and also debris removal, which includes, debris removal. We're talking about removing some of the sediments at the underneath the bridge in the waterway, whether that's trees, debris, sediments. We have to remove those to improve the water flow. Also, it includes small structures, which we consider anything that's 20 feet or less. We consider to be small structure, culverts, pipes, and pipelinings. But our STIP not only includes roadway projects, it includes non-roadway projects, such as transit and passenger rail that uses federal funds. This includes transit agency operation assistance, purchases of vehicles, from paratransit vehicles to buses to vans, to rail car purchases for passenger rails. It also includes equipment purchases, whether you're looking at ticket taking devices, communications, and other items that provide intelligent information to the rider. Those are included in our STIP, as well as infrastructure, whether they're replacing a track or reconstructing a track, buildings and bus shelters, and emergency repairs. It also includes other non-motorized types of travel, from national park improvements, if you're improving their walkways and trails, dedicated bike and pedestrian facilities on corridors where there's planting, landscaping included. Those items will be included in our STIP, as well as any planning and technical studies that are using any federal funds. So why is the STIP important? Well, the STIP is a comprehensive list of multimodal projects programmed in phases over multiple years. Oftentimes, when you're looking into the STIP and you're looking at projects, you'll see a project that may be entered multiple times. That project may be in multiple phases. So for example, preliminary engineering phase, right away where we're purchasing land, or it could be in the construction phase. And that could be in different fiscal years. So those items will be listed separately in our document. The STIP is also important because it is closely coordinated with our planning partners, our resource agencies, our transit providers, and other planning documents that we'll talk about later. The STIP establishes our roadmap for both short and long-term plans for continuous progress. And it is federally required for the approval of federal funds, federal documents, and NEPA federal documents, and permitting. And next, I'll turn it over to Jay for questions.
Thank you, Roy. I appreciate it. We're going to answer a few questions now. And I'd like to remind everybody, if you do have a question, if you're calling in with your phone, just simply hit *6 to unmute your phone, and then there will be an INDOT representative there to take your question. If you are joining in by computer, there's a chat room on the right side of the screen, and you can type your comment or question there and then hit send, and we will see it here. So we do have a question that has come up. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. Right now, at this time, I do want to remind everybody we're primarily asking questions and comments on the STIP itself. But I do think we have a question in the queue that should be showing up on screen fairly soon. And that is, will the STIP help improve public transportation? So that is a question that I will ask Jason Castile to answer. So Jason, can you answer this question, please?
Hey, sure. Anything that goes into public transportation will be included in the STIP. Like they mentioned earlier, any of the MPO projects and especially any of our direct projects, since we act as the direct recipient for a lot of what they call like the other than urbanized, specialized transit, and then our 5339 vehicles, that sort of thing. Those are all in the STIP, and those are all things that would go into improving public transportation in the state.
Thank you, Jason. At this time, we'll see if any other questions come up. And then, what kind of roadblocks to STIP projects are there? Well, there can be some roadblocks, obviously, and the roadblocks that probably come up most often are projects that are programmed in the STIP for various phases of production. At some time or another, it is not uncommon for some sort of a glitch to occur. And that might be, in the most common situation, would be an environmental issue that when we did our initial screening, either we missed it or was buried or in such a way that we knew nothing about at that time. And we found out about it later when we were moving forward with the project. Another item that does tend to slow us down sometime is utility relocation. INDOT does not necessarily, with our staff and with our contractors, move the utilities. Utility companies are generally responsible for doing that. And sometimes our schedule doesn't match up well with their schedule, and that can delay a project from time to time. At which case, when a project is delayed, we will, if it's seriously delayed, we can pull it out of the STIP. And then we always keep a bench project or a series of projects in the wings that we can then move forward to so that we don't miss a beat with regard to our production season. So I hope that answers your question. At this time, I don't really see too many other questions. I'd like to remind everybody, please submit a question. If you're joining by computer, you can submit your question on the right side of the screen. And if you are calling in, hit *6, and someone from INDOT will answer your question. I do see one question that happens to be in the queue. If that could be brought over, and it has to do with COVID pandemic, has it affected funding and future transportation planning assumptions? So the question is, has the COVID pandemic impacted funding allocation in current and future planning assumptions? Well, it has not affected INDOT as severely as we might have expected 1 year ago, back in April, when essentially most of the nation was shutting down. The funds that come to us that pay for projects for the highways primarily come from gasoline tax. And if people are not driving and if trucks are not moving as much as they were then they are purchasing less fuel, and that means less money is going into the coffers to pay for projects. So we saw a rather radical drop in average daily traffic, which we can translate into future revenue. And that was primarily in April, early May, maybe a little bit of June last year. I think it was in the neighborhood of 35 to 40% reduction. However, during the summertime, later in the summer and in the fall and up until now, much of that traffic has been restored. And on top of that, we're up to about, I think about 85%, almost 90% of what we were pre-COVID as far as our traffic goes. And that translates into more money into the coffer, so it's being restored. In addition to that, like many state governments and local governments, the COVID relief bills, I don't remember the specific name of it, but we did receive some additional COVID relief type funding to make up for the lost revenue that we had. So to answer your question very quickly, it hasn't really caused too much of a problem yet. We'll keep monitoring the situation, but right now we seem to be in pretty decent shape that we can deliver the projects as listed in the STIP at this time. And we'll always keep monitoring that. So at this point, I think I'll just go ahead and turn the presentation back over to Roy, and then we'll come back to questions in a little bit here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jay. Next, we're going to talk about how is the STIP developed. As Jay mentioned earlier, our STIP is developed on a 2-year cycle. It is amended monthly. The STIP is developed with extensive coordination with our planning partners coordinated with a lot of their documents. As you can see in the graphic, at the top, you see a number of plans. You see the multimodal freight and mobility plan. You see our long-range transportation plan, which is more policy-based. And you see the next level Roads Indiana plan, which is a $60 billion funded plan over a 20-year period. As well as we also have the statewide bike and pedestrian plan known as the active transportation plan, which is also policy-based. And those are the high-level plans, as well as others that we may have and coordinate with, including our MPO partners and their long-range plans. But those are the high-level vision plans that think long-term, 20 years plus. Typically, that feeds down to our 10-year asset management plan. And in our asset management plan, we're actually looking at all of our assets in our life cycles of those assets, and how can we optimize the livelihood of that asset. So whether it's a bridge, within 10 years, we can start thinking about what type of programs and treatments are needed to keep that bridge maintained, or the pavement and other safety items. At that stage, that's where INDOT sets its goals. We set some in long-term, 20 years plus, but we also set some intermediate goals, and within like 5-10 years, we want X% of our bridge to be in these conditions or no less than this condition. So it feeds from there. Projects are generated and analyzed, and then it feeds into our 5-year construction program. For INDOT, our 5-year construction and our STIP are one and the same. And so our 5-year STIP has become a 5-year construction program. But Indiana has a collaborative, decentralized, and centralized programming process that includes a lot of involvement and opportunities with our stakeholders and the public. As noted, our decentralized and centralized approach, our district is responsible for our annual call for projects. The 5th year plus, we call it the plus because a lot of times there can be projects that may be recommended that may be 6-7 years out, but a lot of times that can be bundled with other projects that we're doing in that area at the time. So we try to have a little bit more of a window of not just a 5th year, but sometimes 6 and 7 years out, and possibly up to 10. But each summer, late spring, early summer, INDOT Central Office facilitate some regional planning coordination meetings. And these are held at all 6 of our districts. It includes the district office staff and experts, our MPO partners, and RPO partners, we call it metropolitan planning. That's what MPO stands for. And regional planning is the RPO, regional planning organizations. And we meet with them along with local officials to discuss trends, transportation issues, and other items. What are some of the project needs? So we have those discussions and document those meetings. At that stage, once the MPO or the district opens up their call for projects, the district takes a lot of different information from different sources, including analysis done central office. Central office has performed, or our traffic engineering have performed, and they perform additional analysis and perform some of the preliminary scoping for these identified improvements. At that stage, they also identify some of the cost estimation, and then they prioritize those needs based on analysis and input received for their district. At that stage, once the call is closed, the district turns over that work and submits it to the central office. And within central office, there's the program management group, which is made up of directors and high-level officials, and they just basically do kind of perform an overview of our project development process or our program development process. And they determine what some of the agency goals are going to be as far as asset performance. They determine the level of funding and where it goes. So they may determine X% is going to go to bridge, X% is going to go to roadway and mobility. Mobility may include bike and pedestrian active transportation, and X% of the funds are going to go to the safety team. And they determine those items, and it's very iterative to see how that's going to impact our goals. As you can see, there's 4 asset teams. There's the bridge asset team, the roadway asset team, which handles pavement and also roadway slides and geometric deficiencies. And then you have mobility asset teams. They handle everything from added travel lanes to operational improvements for a corridor, whether that's turn lanes or signals, those kind of improvements, and intelligent transportation system. And then you have the safety team. They handle a wide aspect of improvements that may cross and cut between roadway asset and mobility. But these projects are submitted to central office, and each of the asset teams have representatives from each of the districts and central office divisions. And so they work together to try to take the projects that were submitted by the district and prioritize them by performance and by rank. They prioritize them to by each of the asset types. And so once that is completed, then the projects are selected, and they have a statewide approach when they do this. So they're not thinking district-wise, they're thinking about what's important for the state, the entire state. And so once those are selected, then we start working with, we'll work with our MPOs throughout the process, but then we do more early coordination with our MPO partners in determining, what are some of the additional needs. And then from that point, it goes to the public to talk, we weigh in from the public and stakeholder input. And then the last step of that is going to Federal Highway for their review and approval. And it takes about 6-7 months to develop a STIP. The most intensive part is the draft list of projects, which we are coordinating with our MPO partners and their transportation improvement program, which is similar to our state transportation improvement program, STIP, but theirs is more regional. And there are certain aspects of those 2 documents that have to be consistent and sync up. So there's a lot of trade-off because some MPOs and some MPO areas have air quality issues and congestion issues that has to be addressed in certain ways. So it's a lot of coordination, very iterative, During that stage, we also are updating the verbiage within the STIP. If there are new targets for performance of our assets, that is being set as well. And if there's an overall funding target for the fiscal years, that is also determined. Once that happens, we open our 45-day comment period. We're in that 45-day comment period now. That started April 9th. We'll close on May 25th. We'll process all comments, respond to comments. We will add those comments to the appendices of the draft STIP document, and then make revisions to the documents based on the comments received. After that point, about June, the 1st of June, we try to have the document wrapped up in a final draft form that we send to Federal Highway that will do their checks, Federal Highway and Federal Transit Authority, and they'll do their checks to approve the document. So who's involved in the development of the STIP? You are, as a citizen, as a professional, as an expert, you are involved in the STIP development process. And there are plenty of opportunities for stakeholder and public involvement, whether that's through our long-range transportation plan, whether that's through our freight mobility plan, 10-year asset management plan, American for Disability Act transition plans, or state bike and pedestrian plans. Your voice matters. And there are opportunities with MPO, there are MPO workshops, MPO conferences as well that feeds into our outreach process. We even reach out to and have relationships with some of the freight and logistics industries and social media. So there are a lot of opportunities for you to get involved, and your voice do matter. As far as those that contribute to the development of the STIP, include the INDOT district offices, our metropolitan planning organizations, and regional planning organization. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. As far as our district offices and their roles and their involvement with our STIP, the district, INDOT has 6 districts, and they cover the entire state in manageable regions. Our district serves as our front line in terms of direct coordination with our stakeholders, local officials, and citizens. A lot of the meetings that we try to have them at the district offices. And the districts are involved in MPO, technical boards and policy board meetings. They're also involved in the asset management teams, and a lot of the activities as far as coordinating with the public and with local officials occur at the district. So they are our front line as far as outreach. MPOs also serves a major role and are a primary source of local and regional public stakeholder input and outreach into our planning process. MPOs are policy boards of organizations designed to carry out the federal planning process. They do serve as a forum for local governments to provide short and long-term plans to address transportation-related concerns. And as we mentioned before, each MPO facilitate board and technical meetings that are often open to the public. Some MPOs have their meetings monthly, some have it every other month, quarterly, and then we have one MPO that does have their meeting twice a year. And so they are responsible for developing regional long-range plans, studies, and tips. And they are also a front line as well. They know their areas and what's going on in those areas to kind of drive some of the needs in discussion. For more information about Indiana MPOs, please go to the website www.indianampo.com. Regional planning organizations, RPOs, are similar in ways to our MPO. However, they carry out our transportation planning process for smaller non-metropolitan, urban, and rural areas. They too support the district office in our statewide planning efforts through coordinating local planning, land use, and economic development activities that they are aware of in their regions. They also provide input as to some of the thoroughfare plans or if there's bike and pedestrian plans. So when we're doing these regional meetings, the RPOs play a critical role in providing us that feedback and where are some of the concerns, what are the issues, what are the hot spots, what are the land use changes, what are the future vision. They provide all that input into the regional meetings as well. And so they represent their local constituents. If you have want more information about RPOs, just go to www.iarc.cc. AIRC stands for Indiana Association of Regional Councils. And then I turn it back over to Jay for opening the public comment question period.
Thank you. As Roy mentioned, we will answer some questions at this time, and we'll continue to answer questions for a while. If you are calling in on your phone, please press *6 to unmute your phone, and an INDOT representative will be there to take your question down. If you're joining us by online, please submit your question in the chat box on the right side of the screen, and then hit send, and we will see that question. At this time, I think there are some questions perhaps in the queue, and if my director would bring one of those over, which he just did. And this is a very important question. I think Roy kind of already touched on it, but it is this. Before it enters the STIP, how does a project become a project for INDOT? That is an excellent question. I'm going to ask Roy to expand upon this further. So Roy, could you handle this question, please?
Thanks, Jay. So again, that is a very good question. Oftentimes before a project enters the STIP, there's a lot of coordination on needs. We're working with our MPOs, we're working with our RPOs and some of our local constituents. And so projects can come in from a variety of sources, from executives, from locals, and from our partners, and also from just a needs analysis. And so when we're doing these regional meetings and we open the call, there's a lot of analysis that is ongoing to determine the needs, the impacts, solutions. And so that goes back and forth to determine what impact that's going to have on addressing the needs and when does that need to occur. And so once that is figured out and it goes through those asset teams that we talked about earlier, at that stage, if the funding is there, if the need scores well, then it moves on to the next stage where it is constrained. And then it's assigned a project manager, a DES, it is activated and heads into our STIP document. And there's also public involvement with that as well before it is officially a STIP project. So it goes into our draft STIP document, either as an amendment or as a draft in our STIP, in our STIP document, and then it goes from there. Once approved, then it becomes a STIP project.
Thank you, Roy. I would like to remind everyone that we are open for public involvement, public comment on the STIP, and we will be open for this until May 25th. And frankly, if you drop in a comment after that, slightly after that time frame, we'll certainly address it as well. If you did not submit a comment today, you wanted to, or you didn't get an opportunity to, you can still submit that comment through our website, and we'll post that link a little later. But I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that you can continue to submit comments right up until the close of the comment period or questions, and we'll do our best to answer those for you and also post those answers on the website as well. At this time, I'm going to see if there are any questions in the queue, and if there are, could my director bring those over to us? And This is a question, FAQ. How do you determine what projects get state funds and which projects get federal funds? Well, we don't necessarily decide that in our area, but our finance department is the major driver of what gets funded with state funds at what level and what gets funded with federal funds and how many of those. But for a little more detail, I may have already answered the question. April, are you out there? Could you elaborate on this if you could? And
There it is. Yes, Jay is correct. They identified the projects at the beginning of the whole process as of what it is eligible for. But as it goes down through development, finance looks at our budget numbers and decides what types of projects we can use 100% state funds for and what types we can use federal, and then or a combination of both. Usually our 100% state funded projects are smaller, are a lot of the maintenance work, small structures, mowing, herbicide treatment, and those type of projects. But our bigger capital projects, we tend to use more of a federal state split. I hope that kind of answers your question.
I think it does. And I'm not sure if you mentioned this or not, but I know you mentioned this to me earlier in the day. And that is, even when we do use state funds, we still try to follow all of the federal requirements so that if at some stage we want to switch back to federal funds, we can do so without any issues whatsoever. Pardon me. So at this time, do we have any other questions? And I want to remind everyone, you can submit a question at any time. And if you're calling in by phone, you can hit *6 to unmute your phone or use the chat box on the right side of the screen to type your question and submit with send. Pardon me. So are there any questions in the queue that I might be missing that you could slide over, Director? I am not seeing any at this point. Roy, are you finished with your presentation? It looked like you were very close to the end. That's my question.
Got a little bit more to go, but we're almost there.
Okay, very good. I was paying attention, but I'm going to turn this back over to Roy to finish the presentation, and then we will open up the floor once again for questions and comments. Thank you so much.
All right. So the next question we have is, how can I access the STIP projects? And there's multiple ways, but the most comprehensive way is if you go to our Next Level Roads program. As we mentioned before, our Next Level Roads program is a $60 billion 20-year program. However, we do have an interactive map that you can access that includes STIP projects and other projects that may not be in the STIP, from some local federal aid projects to some state-funded local projects that are regionally significant. And it also includes not only active projects, or what we call funded projects, but projects that are future projects that INDOT is prioritizing moving forward on, even though funding is not available at this stage. But the interactive map, if you see the dots, you can click on any of those dots and drill down and get more information about that project. So that's one way to view projects. And you can get there, again, either type in Next Level Roads, Indiana. That will take you there. Or you can follow this, this link from indot.maps/NLRI. And that should take you there. But the quickest way is just to type in Next Level Roads, Indiana, and it'll take you right to this interactive map. The next way is a more direct way. And if you only want to see the STIP projects, then go to the STIP document itself. And in the document, you'll see a list of projects sorted out by different categories, including by county. So that is the more direct way. But please, again, the STIP will only include projects that are federally funded and 100% funded state projects that are considered regionally significant. And you can access the STIP document by either typing in INDOT STIP, or you can go to our link at in.gov/INDOT/3132.htm. How can I provide input? We always encourage you to get involved, and there are plenty of opportunities for you to do so. You can attend public meetings. You can connect with your local MPO, RPO, or even a district in your area. You can also sign up for email communications in our Gov Delivery email sign up link, which if you type in www.indot/3074.htm, that should take you to our Gov Delivery email sign up sheet, or just type in Gov Delivery INDOT, and that'll take you there as well. You can also provide your input through the STIP comment form, through our email. You can email our program coordinator directly, or you can mail us your comments. For the STIP comment form, again, there's a link, in.gov/indot/3132.htm, or you can email our program coordinator at draftstip, one word, at indot.in.gov, or you can mail it to 100 North Senate Avenue, IGCN 758, and just type in transportation planning, and that is in Indianapolis, Indiana 46204. For more general comments, you can go online to our online comment form or online source, indot4u.com, or you can call in directly at 1-855-INDOT for the number 4 U, and that will take you directly to these lines. And this is our centralized public input and customer service line. So whether it's a pothole or flooding or some other items you have questions for, it'll get routed to the right person. Even if it's a STIP project or STIP comment, they will get that to the right people to get you a response. And I believe that is all I have for my presentation. Jay?
Thank you, Roy. Appreciate it. At this time, I want to remind everyone that we will be taking comments on the STIP, the draft STIP, until May 25th. If you would like to submit a comment, you can do so online. The best way to do this, I have found, is simply use your search engine and type in Indiana Department of Transportation or INDOT. It will generally take you to INDOT's webpage. And we have a banner close to the lower end of the page, and it will say something about the current STIP. Hit that banner, and it will take you right to the page where you can submit a comment. And there's also a copy of the STIP there for you to review, as well as this presentation will be there on the page for you to view as well, if you choose to. We will open the floor up to questions. If you are calling in, please press *6 to unmute your phone, and then we will take your question and put it out for everyone to see. And if you happen to be online, the chat box on the right, please type in your question, then just hit send, and we should all see it here, and then we'll bring it up for everyone to discuss and provide answers to. So at this time, are there any questions that are moving forward? This is a great question, and this is, why is it critical to plan so far ahead? I'm going to let Roy touch on this in a minute, but one of the things that is very important is the transportation network in Indiana, in fact, the whole nation. It's a major piece of infrastructure. It is an expensive piece of infrastructure, and it is critical not only to the economy of the United States and the state of Indiana, but it is critical to our daily lives as well, which both intermingle. Our projects take a long time to develop. They're not easy to develop, especially the larger projects. There's a lot of work involved, a lot of homework, a lot of investigation, a lot of engineering work is involved in those. That does take time. So we want to get an idea of what we will be needing in the future. Meaning beyond the next 5 to 15 years, up to 20 years, and then see what might be coming down the pipe, and also what changes might be happening. And as I said earlier, this is probably the best question for Roy, so I will turn the floor over to Roy, and he'll answer the question a little better than what I have. So Roy, if you don't mind.
Thanks, Jay. So the question is, why is it critical to plan so far ahead? This is important because a lot of the projects that we have, major projects, they have a level of complexity and they can be expensive. So it takes a lot of coordination to deliver some of the projects. Some of the projects that you see today, major projects all across the state, where you see a lot of major construction zones, many of those projects were planned years ago. I know, like for I-69, that has been planned for 20 plus years before we even broke ground, because it is expensive. And as Jay had mentioned, the complexity of it may include some environmental analysis, engineering designs, studies to look at the alternatives to solve the issues and what are the issues. And also, not only is it critical just to plan far ahead because these are complex, but it is critical to plan ahead because oftentimes you don't know for sure what type of new funds will be coming available and what types of technology will impact our needs for today, or even shifts in land use. So we have to plan in advance for those reasons. We can be in areas where that might be in high growth areas where we have to pre-purchase right of way to keep the cost down. So there's a lot of reasons why it's critical for us to plan far ahead with these projects. But the biggest one is that many of these projects are complex, and we have to work together and coordinate to get to the point where we can construct a project that's going to meet taxpayers' needs. And also, again, it's critical to plan far ahead also and to identify some of the needs so that you can secure additional funds. A lot of times funds become available. Indiana has been in a great position for years because we plan so far ahead that when funds become available, whether it's state or federal, we have a plan that we can take out and instantly start moving forward with projects, whether that's a grant or stimulus. Indiana has been very successful in being able to move forward compared to other states in this nation. So planning is critical, and planning far ahead is important.
Thank you, Roy. We have about 10 minutes left in this meeting. We will be here to answer questions through the end of the meeting, but I did want to point out that there will be another STIP meeting coming up, and it will be next week on Tuesday, May 4th at 1:00 p.m. And you can join in exactly the same way that you did with this particular meeting online. And we'll be there again to do the presentation and to answer any questions that you might have. At this time, we're looking for additional questions should any come in. I have one that just came in, and that is, given recent discussions on the Jobs America infrastructure bill, How will this impact decision making, specifically support for transit and transit active transportation and active transportation, I should say. I will let Jason answer the question about transit. Then I will ask Brandon if he can jump in and answer some questions about active transportation. But I will, before I turn it over, I will say, we hope that more money will be coming in. We will see what we actually get. Jason, are you available to answer the transit side of this?
Yes. Hey, I can tell you a little bit about, I do know that a lot of the, what we call them, CARISA funds, the coronavirus assistance funds we've been getting have been huge toward making a lot of the transit projects more available to us. There's been a lot of money coming in, and we've been able to do a lot of things with that. As for the Jobs America infrastructure bill specifically, I haven't seen anything definite come to us as to what we're getting on that, but we have certainly been enjoying the massive increases in funding that we've had so far.
Thank you, Jason. At this time, Brandon Bergoa is our bike and pedestrian coordinator, and he is our active transportation czar, so to speak. So Brandon, are you capable of joining in? He's also running the meeting. So Brandon, thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is a lot of talk going on about the Jobs America and infrastructure bill. And I think the most critical thing for us at the state level is that we need to be ready to not only tackle the challenges that we're currently facing in the world in terms of accessibility, pedestrian safety, micromobility, bicycle transportation, all of these other trends that are going on. And we need to reinforce the notion of a transportation system and network and be ready to do that, to make sure that it's suitable for all users, regardless of the mode type that they choose. So there are a lot of things happening in the background, not necessarily within the STIP, but in the planning division that we are doing to ensure that INDOT is not only ready, but hopefully ready to take the world by storm, or at least the nation. So.
Thank you, Brandon. I said you were the bike czar. You're probably more the bike expert for Indiana than the bike czar. My apologies. So, and Brandon is working the board as well. So Brandon, I'm going to double task you. Are there any other questions that you see that I have missed so far? And this is after the comment period. How can the public still be involved in the STIP? There are a couple of ways. We, as I said earlier, we are a dynamic state. We are always making changes to our STIP, and we will be doing probably monthly additions and subtractions from the STIP itself, amendments, so to speak. So each one of those amendments will be published every single month. And while we don't have meetings, we do have an availability for the public to comment on any proposed changes. Now, in addition to that, you can submit questions at any time using the STIP comment form, and you can go from there. But I've been picking on Roy a lot, so I might quickly ask April if she can answer this question about after the comment period, how can you still be involved with the STIP? April, can you help out on that?
As Jay said, you know, we do amendments to the STIP every month, at least every month. And you do have a opportunity to comment on those. But if you have projects if you have an area that you see potholes or whatever, you can contact the district and they'll put it in their program and see if it's something that we need to address immediately, or it can wait a little while, but they'll look at it based on assets. So that way you get involved, because then that can be added to the STIP document in the four-year program. So besides just commenting on what's there, you can be proactive and identify potential projects to the districts beforehand.
Thank you, April. I really appreciate that. That's an excellent point that you made about key decision points that might be coming up, and with regard to early development of potential projects where the public can get involved with the district personnel, as well as central office at INDOT. But the best avenue is really to talk to the technical services directors at the INDOT districts, one of the 6 INDOT districts. We don't have a screen up for them right now, but we will try to put that on our website as well, so everyone knows who those folks are and how they can reach them. So we are coming up on the hour here. We started a little bit late, I believe, so we will keep the floor open for just a little while longer to answer any final questions. I do want to remind everyone that we do have another meeting coming up next week, and that's at 1 o'clock p.m., and that is on May 4th. That will be our final meeting on this STIP development process. We welcome your questions and your comments, and we will address those as well. We'll put your questions and comments will generally show up on the web page at some point, and questions directly submitted to us through the STIP comment form. We will actually put those comments in the STIP document, as well as the answer or how INDOT addressed those comments. So it will become a permanent part of the record for you to see later on. And we hope that we answer your questions in a way that you will find favorable. Again, if you would like to submit comments at any time, you may do so at our web page. And the link is in.gov/INDOT/3132.htm. Now that's a lot to remember. So the best way is simply use your search engine, type in either INDOT, Indiana Department of Transportation, which will take you to INDOT's webpage. And there's a banner near the bottom of the page, which will also take you to the site that you're seeing here. And you can submit comments right there as well. You can submit comments regarding anything with regard to INDOT, any question you have, that what INDOT does, what it's doing, why it didn't do something you think should have been done, or alerting us to some traffic problems or potential road problems that you see by contacting us at INDOT4U. That's a website, INDOT4U, and type that into the search engine and it will be there, and you can submit your question there and comment or concern, and it will be addressed in very short order. And you can also call our customer services if you so desire at 1-855-463-6848. And I did want to make sure I let you know that. I don't see any other questions. Thank you all for joining this meeting. We will still stick around for a slight period of time until the meeting comes to an end and the platform ends. If you happen to have questions and we're still operational, feel free to submit those questions. Thank you so much for participating in this virtual town hall meeting for the statewide transportation improvement program. Again, the next meeting is on May 4th, Tuesday at 1 p.m. Thank you again so much.